with us, the reuse commons, similar to, I did not know about Sarah Jo's efforts coming up with the remake commons. So take it away, Amanda and Josh.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, do you need me to share or you got it?
You can go ahead and share. Yeah, if you got it up.
Well, it wasn't working for me to advance my slides in the last one, so.
Then I will share. Give me a second here. Do I need to become admin or anything like that? Xenia, Cami, is there a way that I can share? Oh, there it is, share screen right in front of me. Great.
We're seeing your Zoom screen. Oh, perfect.
And just to be clear, we're actually going to talk about 3 different things. So I'll not to be confused if you guys are looking for all information on the reuse common.
Right. So we're yeah, we'll get to it. There's 3 things that kind of all dovetail together. So we couldn't really talk about one without the other. So we'll get into that. So yeah, I'm Josh Epstein. I'm the program manager over at the Northeast Seattle Tool Library, which is over off of Lake City Way. And we lend a lot of tools. If you're not familiar with tool libraries, you should become familiar. We're like a book library, but for tools. And Amanda?
Josh is underselling himself. So I will just unabashedly, Josh just appeared on the Today Show and did a huge favor to all of us by highlighting the circular economy and the tool library. You can look up that clip online, or Josh will probably be able to share it with you. But I'm Amanda Miller. Those that were in the breakout session for Impact heard me stumble through that whole thing.
Yes, I'm doing it.
Yes, so I'm the executive director of the South King Tool Library in Federal Way. Neither of those hands are mine, but that's okay. I'm happy to work with Josh. We just kind of started freestyling, spitballing, getting things together because we had some really great, passionate overlap. Our tool library does a little bit more than just lend out tools. Well, so does Josh's, but we also do a lot of other programming, and we serve a pretty diverse community. So I didn't mention the other breakout session that our city of Federal Way is one of the most diverse cities in the state of Washington, economically and in every other way. But we think of that as we look towards how we can impact and connect with our community. So Josh, do you want to talk first?
Sure, yeah. I'll go to the next slide here. So we're going to actually be talking about scaling today. The 3 programs that we're going to be talking about, we'll get into those a bit, but we're going to be talking about how we can scale what is going on really well. Tool libraries are kind of taken off across the country and across the world, which is really exciting and energizing. And so why do we want to scale? Sustainability is really what it comes down to. So environmental, economic, and social sustainability. And these all just, they need each other, right? So there can be a temptation to just focus on the environmental side. We want to be really aware that if we're not making money to sustain these programs, we can't do the great environmental work we do. Luckily, right now, people are really waking up to the fact that we need to be taking care of our environment. So there is money flowing towards environmental causes, such as ourselves, which is wonderful, and we need to keep that going and proving our worth in that realm. Similarly, social needs are really, it's obvious that there are social breakdowns, there's disconnection. And so if we're providing a place that's not only creating environmental sustainability, but social connection and sustainability, and we can get more resources, people want to be part of that, and the economics flow. Amanda, do you want to add anything on that?
No, I think the next slide probably does that. Yeah, so the next sort of natural question is to define what scalability really means. So we've had quite a lot of conversations with everyone from every level, working on how we can scale. So we look at that as, program diversity, every neighborhood with a lending resource, or maybe that's a government or larger institutions partnering with community organizations to fulfill those needs. There's not a wrong answer. What we've sort of landed on is response to the need that we found in our communities. So I think we can go to the next one.
So this is a little bit more about the need that we're noticing. The tool libraries are doing well. Ours in particular, we're finding tool libraries popping up there. There's 10 in the greater Seattle area, but it just spreads across the world. Yet there's still folks that don't have access to it because their tool libraries are not close enough, or maybe the hours are too short. We're noticing that communities are lacking skills or knowledge to use tools, and some of it can be pretty intimidating. And folks don't know how to get rid of stuff sustainably. We have so many things that just recycling or reusing things is hard to do. One of my personal goals, I would say my main life mission, is to change this idea that people don't know tool libraries exist. If I get to a place where when I tell somebody that I work at a tool library, and they don't say, "Oh, wow, what a great idea. I've never heard of that." Then I feel like it's a victory. Like, I want everybody to at least know the tool libraries exist, and hopefully they become as commonplace and common knowledge as a regular book library. And of course, there's that climate change thing, which is a bummer, to say the least.
So yeah, now we're just going to talk to you a little bit about what we've been working on, what our grandiose ideas are. The reuse commons or circular marketplace, like Sarah Jo said, we have to wordsmith kind of what that looks like. The same with the next topic, which is the Tulip, the incubator program that my group is working on through the next cycle program. And then the idea of an alliance, because we need to advance each other as much as possible in order to do sort of Josh's goal and really the overarching goal of creating more tool libraries, more resources. And we think that an alliance might actually help that. Plus, we really just want to get feedback. So we might actually talk about that a lot more tomorrow. We want to just give you a big picture idea.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm going to get into reuse commons, and these ideas that we're going to be talking about right now that we're showcasing, we're really excited and really appreciate Zero Waste Washington to giving us this opportunity to talk about these things, because they're very early on. But there's a pro to that, in that we have an advantage that this is a time where people can get involved, people can have their voice heard, and we can shape these things depending on what the actual need of the community at large is. So as we go, just keep your mind open about what this could possibly look like. And what our hope is that folks are either inspired by this to do similar things or do their own projects, or get involved with what we're trying to do. So the reuse commons, name TBD, could be changed, but it's a circular economy marketplace. And so what that means is that it's a single location that houses a suite of complementary reuse and repair focused services. I'll get into the main ones we're looking at, but that is a general idea that could be replicated in a lot of ways. And we're doing this because running a successful tool library, people have come to us with other things. Wouldn't it be great if we had a community space to gather? Wouldn't it be great if we had reused building supplies? And so we thought, yes, that would be great. We don't have a lot of room, so how do we make that work? So basically, the idea is sharing abundance. And abundance looks different in different communities. In North Seattle, I would say there's more abundance than other places, and there's different challenges. But I feel like tool libraries in general, that is what we're trying to do, is share abundance. So we would have a tool library, which is like a book library, but for tools. We'd have a reuse building supply, affordable reclaimed building materials, tools, and appliances. And so think Habitat for Humanity Restore, second use, valid reuse, but the nonprofit version of that. An educational fixer room. So fix-it shop that would be actually helping the tool library and maybe tools that are coming in for sale, but also a place that we could teach folks how to do fixing, do fix-it nights, fix-it cafes, that kind of thing. And then finally, a classroom and gathering space where we can do wood classes, but also everything, all the great stuff Amanda is doing, like clothing swaps and recycling events. We do architectural drawing classes. We've even had welding classes. So the bigger the space, the better. And then depending on what we can find, it could be even bigger than that. And I'll get into some of the possibilities later about what other organizations could come under this umbrella. What I'm trying to do is paint a picture here of more or less a sustainability mall, even though both those words are problematic in their own ways. This is a place where you can go to get rid of stuff sustainably. And you can go to that one spot like a Home Depot where you're going to get everything you need. And I think one of our challenges when we're smaller tool libraries is that people don't want to have to go there and go to another spot, for materials or for other tools. Here's a fun 3D rendering, just so you can imagine what it could possibly look like. It could look very, very different. We're having some fun conversations with folks in North King County about what this might look like. Our area that we're looking in is the very south end would be Lake City, but more likely more north towards up into Shoreline, and Central Shoreline is kind of where we're targeting our main focus. I had a very fun conversation with some folks in King County with some possibilities of working with them in their transfer station, and great conversations with the people in Shoreline about what this could possibly look like. It fits, one great thing about this idea is that it fits really well with a lot of city, county, and state initiatives that are already going on to reduce waste.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
Getting a little static in your mic.
Oops. Let me try this. Is this any better?
Little
No.
long.
Okay. All right, let me try. Unplug it and plug it back. Is this better or worse?
Better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. Move on to the next slide here. So here's some milestones we're looking at. We just went for a next cycle seed grant, and this is a grant that would really help us create a business plan, do some serious outreach, make sure we're giving folks what they want, where they want it. January, we're going to find out if we get that grant, and then either way, we're going to begin outreach and creating our business plan. In March, we're going to be applying for a Seattle Public Utilities grant, which we're pretty excited about. We've gotten in the past, and that was more just for COVID relief, and this is really exciting to be able to go for a grant that would move something forward, a new program. We'd continue outreach, finish our business plan in June. There's working with this potential transfer station thing could happen in June, and then move in. Oh yeah, so scaling, this is really what I wanted to talk about, is that we have this this idea that it's not just going to be a one spot commons. So we have our tool library going right now. We hope that this builds up into the reuse commons, but we could see this being a model that's replicated around the country. And, I can't say that this is like a new model. This is already happening. Boulder, Colorado has Resource Central, which is very much what we're talking about. There's a really cool spot in Sequim, Washington called Around Again that has a tool library and a second use building supply and appliances. And they even do paint supply or paint recycling and all this cool stuff. So we're trying to copy what they're doing well and make it specific to our area. Like I said, there's other possibilities depending on the space we get. A bike co-op could be great. We've talked to Xenia from Zero Waste Washington, who runs an incredible furniture rescue program where they get furniture, fix it up, and donate it or sell it cheaply. I think it's all donated maybe to low-income folks and immigrant families that need that furniture. Amazing program. We could have artists and makerspace. There's a lot of possibilities depending on the space we actually find. So that's that. There's my email. I'll talk more about it later. I'll be around. But I want to pass it over to Amanda to talk about her amazing program.
So first off, this is a working acronym. Tulip is kind of where we've landed, but this started as an idea for a replicable model for a tool library. And so Tool Library in the Box was actually accepted by the Next Cycle Accelerator for their first cohort. And so we were working with them. And since we started, we decided to rebrand on more of a fully synthesized still an egg, but more of a, not an omelet. And I'm trying to find where, there we go. Go ahead to the next one. Yeah, I'm trying to follow along on everything. So yeah, there's a little bit about the next cycle. Okay, so this, what we're going towards, would actually end up being more of an online course with modules around organizational business development, programming, community building, engagement. I'm not going to read you the slide, but a lot of infrastructure examples, mentorship, and more of a whole cohort, whole accelerator, whole incubator system that tool libraries, either existing or future, can implement to be effective, sustainable, resilient, and impactful for their community. So let's go to the next one. Right now, we're working with the Next Cycle Accelerator, and we're in the team recruitment and planning stages. Like I said, we kind of just made this little egg, and as we go forward to make it into an omelet, it'll be a little bit of a journey. We're looking at the next year. In 2023, our organization will be opening another location in South King County, thanks to funding from King County and their 3+ Circular Economy grant. And that will serve as a template for how we can form this, this incubator program and some of the steps along the way. Then we're looking at probably the next several years for funding alignments through grants and test cohorts, testing and trials, and making this implementable on a larger scale, with really the long term being a full-blown separate entity with facilitators and project management team that would go through that. So yeah, I'm seeing some of the questions in the chat, but I think maybe we can come back to that in a minute, because Next Cycle is great and they're fabulous and they could have their own session. And I don't know if maybe we have more on that later, but yeah, that was sort of just the incubator in a nutshell. I wanted to just give a moment of that. And then Josh and I just have hopes, goals, and dreams for a lending alliance of some sort. And that really is a collaborative effort that could be facilitated by the incubator or could facilitate the incubator as well. I think it was at this point that Josh and I decided we should say that this is a complete suspension of our egos, our organizational associations, and this is simply like efforts that we are working towards in long term, because this is bigger than all of us. So as we're moving forward for an alliance sort of formation, we want to know what your thoughts are, what you would like to see, what it could look like for us, and who you know, we've tossed around the ideas and efforts have been made for tool library alliances in the past. This is a whole section of circular economy folks, so I think there's a lot of potential conversation to be had here. Yeah, Josh, do you want to speak a moment about this?
Yep. If anybody recognizes our Facebook posts, that's our famous tool baby doing some restoration right there. Yeah, so possibilities, that's like the key word for all of what we're talking about, is that there's possibilities to be had here. There's resources, there's energy. It's a really exciting thing. So if you want to get involved, you know, just let us know. And that's what we're good at doing, is getting folks involved. This could look a lot like a lot of different things. Sharing knowledge and resources is kind of the main idea. We've talked about on a local level, we've shared our, we have a vinyl cutter, cricket cutter, and t-shirt press that we've shared. So maybe there's just bigger scale things that tool libraries can be a tool. We can have a tool library. On a more national scale, I was talking to Leanna, an amazing director from Station North in Baltimore, and they're doing incredible stuff at their tool library and doing some great classes. And she had this idea of, could we potentially all share insurance? Is there a way that we could get, you know, liability insurance or benefits for our employees and get better rates because we're doing it on this big scale and kind of unionize? We were also talking about funding. There's huge EPA grants out there right now, for instance. that maybe we could get a grant that creates several reuse commons, or we're all going on together to get the tool library incubator program going. So if you have thoughts, send those our way. And we're creating a list. We already, after the Today Show thing, our main plug was, if you want to start a tool library in your neighborhood, hit us up. And we got a whole bunch of folks saying, yeah, I've been thinking about this, or I didn't know this existed, I want to do it. And so we've got our list going, both of existing and hopeful tool libraries. So if you want to get on that, let us know. Yeah, Amanda.
So I had an apt meeting today, and I do see some really good questions in the comments too, but gentleman that's maybe still here, Gene from my turn and I spoke earlier. So a lot of us came to existence with the help of the things that you see on your screen, ShareStarter, Shareable.com, the listserv for Google, these summit meetings, my turn, just knowing people, association, word of mouth. So there's a lot of resources that exist. And this is where we landed with the incubator, quite honestly, because there's a lot of the disjointed sort of resources out there, or outdated, or some of them simply are, like I think Kamal said, with folks that are kind of siloed, and surely because not of their own choices, but out of situational circumstances. So our goals for an alliance really are to cohesively work these things together as most efficiently as possible. What that looks like, we can wait to see. We can see how that really could be a larger impact. I did have want to answer some of the questions. I think there was one that I was kind of unclear on, but one about great successes and what would happen to the likes of Harbor Freight. I have a short answer to that, but I won't say that. I will measure it. Usually when we talk about tool libraries and people say, aren't you worried that you're going to put Home Depots and Lowe's out of business? And the quick answer is absolutely not. Like, there's no shortage of the things that Home Depots and Lowe's provide to people, especially when it comes to reasonable prices. And the same would be for Harbor Freight, maybe on a different caliber, but that's my opinion. And, dismantling huge organizations, huge systems in place. Like we were talking about earlier, the need for reevaluating our supply chain logistics needs. I spent a decade and 11 years in supply chain logistics, and that gave me an in-depth view on how really it can be as simple as the Fukushima Daiichi plant disrupting every type of manufacturing that is involved with, specifically with motorcycles, that is around the world, and that's reliance on the singular resources. And we saw that with toilet paper, we see that with microchips, we see that all over the place. So I don't think we're worried about dismantling these larger businesses that really aren't serving the purpose well. What we hope happens from that is actually a better quality results. So facilitating or requiring that change to happen. So only the strong survive. Only the best manufacturers would rise to the top and have that sustainable sort of process go through.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
I want to make sure we get to some other questions because that is important, but we only got a few minutes. And I know you are passionate about that one, but I want to hit this one that Will was asking about. How do we bring these different organizations under one roof? What is the common management structure that allows each entity to still function under existing management? Yes, great question. So that is still part of what's being worked out. At this point, how we're looking at it is that for this example, for this first reuse commons, the Northeast Seattle Tool Library's parent company, Sustainable Northeast Seattle, would be managing those 4 main programs that I mentioned. the tool library, the second use building supply, the community workshop, and the fixer room. And then other folks would rent from Sustainable Northeast Seattle or sublet for their programs that dovetail with that. Hope that answers that.
There was another question about the virtual cycle model that's for the marketplaces. So more selection drives lower prices and attracts more customers. I'm not too familiar with that, but
sorry, which was the question? I'm looking for that one.
Hi, this is Craig.
Hey.
This is a systems dynamics modeling size, which is very helpful. And I'm sorry, we can totally punt it, but it's just I came from Amazon, and that was why Amazon grew. Was they understood the motives or drivers of the people in a cycle. So each element in the marketplace, the merchants, the customers, and the platform, each had a motive to participate. Each of them was working to amplify the motives of the others, right?
Yeah.
The platform wanted lower prices and more efficiency. The merchants wanted more customers, and so they wanted more sales. So they brought more selection, which lowers prices because it improves competition. Customers want lower prices, but more and more customers, that attracts more merchants. And so it's a self-reinforcing feedback loop. And I'm just in these more altruistic environments, where the economics are not the fundamental drivers. I'm wondering if people have looked at the systems dynamics of them, how to make them sustainable in that sense.
I think that's what drives this, is that yeah, I mean, I think it's a great point, great question. You should, get in touch with us and we could talk more about this, because I think the two of us could talk for hours about that. I mean, that's why I think both of these programs, where we're talking about them, is that because there's this obvious efficiencies that could be happening economically and socially, but also just in systems of like people are coming to tool libraries and have these extra building supplies they need to get rid of, or looking to buy building supplies and need to fix things. I mean, it's all, there's a reason why those are the ones that are kind of rising to the top of why they need to be next to each other. I hope this is kind of addressing what you're saying, but I think that's what you're getting, is that where can the efficiencies drive this to be more successful, because they're next to each other, not
I'm really excited that this whole thing was on scale and sustainability, because I think that's the, if you will, the weakest aspect of the rebuild and repair movements and reuse for movements, is that they don't have the strong economic cycle and feedbacks that the production and consumption economies do. So it's important to understand those and make those as robust as you can and identify them. Anyway, I'd love to follow up offline.
Those are variables with people, right? The element of community investment and response, and that's where we decided on this incubator program, because the customization and the sort of diversity and multiple different programming types that my organization has landed on serves our community well. It's different for Josh and Josh's community, so it's not a broadly painted sort of picture. So Kamal just mentioned about the loop idea that came out of Europe and sustainable product motivators. And that's where our government needs to go. Heather has her hand raised because I don't know, maybe she wants to say something to that. And we have to have our governments respond in that way. But I don't know what it would take to have that happen, other than we actually bring them into the conversations and have them participate in these ways that we found alignments. And I don't know if there's another magic potion, but Heather, do you have a magic potion?
Well, I think this is an awesome idea. Really, really great. And yeah, in our policy session, we're talking about we need to get some policy drivers to help provide sustainable funding. So you don't have to always go for the grant. Like, let's get some sustainable funding. And I like Craig's idea of like, how do we make this so that we actually can make a virtuous self-funding loop too. Now, one thing I want to speak to is the salvaged materials, the wood and things like that. So I've been very involved with King County's effort on this. And the barrier we have right now actually is a very, very large warehouse space so that we can have all the material coming in. There's a lot. And if we pass a law to require that things be salvaged, like in Portland, which is our goal, then there would be large quantities. The problem is people are not buying it because we don't have the large quantities in one space. So at one point there was talk about making a huge place in Harbor Island to do this, because you need to like get it all there, grade it, clean it. Some of it needs to be sanded in order to get rid of lead paint, things like that. So I'm wondering, of your model, maybe the tool part is the part, but the wood and all that, the bigger answer actually is this sort of idea, unless we can add it, if we can add it to the reuse thing, have a monster huge big space, because that is actually the big barrier right now for that in our entire state and in our region.
I cringe because I have a friend that runs the Duwamish Cleanup Coalition, and I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't put more chemicals on Harbor Island. But
yeah,
I know
but that would not, but this would not be chemicals, so that's the good thing about this. This actually would be the opposite.
Yeah,
because it's reuse. It's reuse.
Well, the systems that have to go into place with my having like worked in exports and things like that, they have a lot of other things. But I love that idea because that is the volume that we have to deal with, and so that's where Josh and I have talked a lot about what it even means to be scalable. Are we talking about someone said dead malls, unused malls? Are we talking about, big warehousing buildings that provide these A to Z resources? Are we talking about, there's so many, the breadth of what it is, but I think the keys are really to focus and equitably research what it is that communities needs and have the alignment for. And that is where government does have a tune. It has an ear, it has, some resources that can at least do that. So we are an advanced community where we have people that give a crap about that in places of power. We have to work on that, maybe other places in the country and nationally. But, what that looks like, short of dismantling and completely reassembling our infrastructure when it comes to manufacturing to supply chain. I love Peter's idea. It made me think of this person that wanted diaper drive that they did in our community. And I said, wouldn't it be cheaper to just buy a diaper manufacturing, machine that you could actually use in the community? And that seemed so preposterous to them. But when they started looking into it, it was actually kind of feasible. So, there's ways where we can hyper localize, where we can hyper centralize, and then there's ways that we can make those effective in the community. So just like we have seen far too many times where people are imposing things on will of folks that have no investment, or they think it's a good idea for those communities. And a lot of times they look like me, they look like Josh, and we don't need to have that. We need to have investment from people that we're serving. So that's the last thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned. Yeah, sorry.
Well, I'll just say, I think we're out of time, correct? And maybe past. Well, obviously we could go on and on and on about this. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions. I'll try to look through those and answer what I can. And but if you didn't get our emails, they'll be around. I'm putting mine in the chat right now. And just, hit us up. And there's an ongoing conversation. I really appreciate all of the thoughts and questions and points and hearing us out.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming today and for participating and doing all you do, because you do great work. That's the point of all of this. You guys are already doing the great stuff. Now let's highlight it. Let's bring it everywhere. Let's do more of it. So thank you.